I know.
There's no way if they want to try to fix it.
Oh, okay, and you, J.P. from their email, that's ridiculous. Mine, you go mute again just for a moment, I'll figure out. Technical issues. Yes, they were good. Yeah, we have they're all sorted now. And here, so I'm gonna start with introductions and okay. So welcome to Barry University School of Law. We're very happy to have you here with us tonight to hear about all the great work that students in clinic have been doing on behalf of Orange and Dunn County Natural Resources Committee. So my name, who I have on my board, is Margaret Stewart, and I am the director of the Environmental Clinic here at Barry Law. And tonight I'm going to introduce you to the amazing students, and then we're going to dive into the following topics. So the students have been researching issues concerning things like water contamination and infrastructure issues in Seminole County, the weatherization assistance program in Osceola County, and the relationship between HOAs and Florida-friendly landscaping and some of the tensions that arise there and what we can do about it. So after the students finish all of their presentations, they'll be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have. So we'll open up the floor at the end for that. If you are joining us online, you can put your questions in the comments as we go through, or I will be opening up the mic at the end so we can discuss. Our wonderful clinic advocate this semester. We have Joshua Law. He is a third year in Barry Law. He was born and raised in Las Vegas with Penn Barry. He has his bachelor's in history with a concentration in pre-law from the United States. And before attending law school, he worked as a legal assistant for 6 years, various different fields. He's currently the president of the Phi Alpha Delta Legal Fraternity here at Barry, and he also serves as the article editor for the Environmental Journal here at Barry. For the journal, he wrote an article discussing the water crisis happening in the Colorado River and the policy actions that address it. Next, we have Doreen Gonzalez. He is also a third-year student here at Barry. He graduated from Georgia Gannett College in 2013 with a bachelor's in Western Civilization. He's originally from New York, and he's experienced living in various states in both the Northeast and the Southeast before finally to Florida with his dog. Prior to law school, he worked as a paralegal in various law firms focusing on family law, immigration law, personal injury, workers' compensation, criminal defense. And he plans to use the experience that he gained in the environment to become a developed environmental advocate. Next, we have Justice Kay, also a 3L here at Barry Law. Barry graduate in May of 2024. She was born, raised, and graduated Buckeye, being native to Ohio, where she received her bachelor's in strategic communications from Ohio State University. She believes she was truly born to be part of a progressive change as her passion all around justice, human rights, and the fight for equality. She has a love for nature and appreciates capturing scenery and beautiful images of her creation. Currently, she's the president of the NAACP at Barry Law, as well as vice president of the Caribbean Law Student Association, and a founding member of the Sharing Success team. She also actively participates in rights-focused advocacy while utilizing her media presence, Justice for Justice, to raise awareness and advocate against social injustice. Post-graduation, she plans to fight for equity, be a voice for the most vulnerable, and challenge the integrity of the justice system globally with the hope of change. Next, we have Lori Loftus. She is also a third-year student here at Barry. Growing up in Florida, she developed a strong appreciation for the natural beauty of the state. She is a graduate of the Florida Institute of Technology, and has also served as a volunteer with the American Red Cross for both health and safety and disaster relief, and has also been an educator, instructor, trainer, and Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission permitted sea turtle emergency response member. She is grateful to be pursuing her law degree and working in the clinic this semester, and she's looking forward to applying her education and skills to protect and defend the planet, our humanity, and nature. Then we have Christopher Marenko. He's also a third-year student. He has a background in philosophy and believes in the importance of helping others, and he has chosen to focus on environmental protection. He's very passionate about becoming an intellectual property and environmental lawyer after he at Berry. And finally, we have Zachary Schneider, also a 3L here at Berry with a desire and drive to protect Florida's natural resources. Currently the president of the Environmental Law Society here at Berry Law, and he's working to bring awareness to the right to a clean and healthy water initiative, which is a amendment to the Florida State Constitution. He graduated from Rutgers Camden University with a degree in science before attending Berry, and he's also an active member of the trial team and is focused on a potential career as an environmental certification trial. So we have an amazing group of students who have been working on that this semester, and now I'm going to turn the floor over to our advocates for them to begin their presentations, and we're going to start with an overview of the water infrastructure corresponding issues in Seminole County.
Hi, my name is Josh. I'm here to present water infrastructure in Seminole County. That means that we're tasked to do some research into. So to start off, we're going to review and just what our presentation is going to be. Essentially, we have the introduction, where we go with background, budgeting, and utility inspections that go in Seminole County. And we're also going to move on to improving water infrastructure in Seminole County, into the current strategies we implemented, education and awareness methods, environmental justice concerns, future strategies, and ultimately growth. So we have first, so there's over 470,000 people in Seminole County across 7 cities. In Seminole County, it's the 3rd smallest county by land size, but it's the 13th most populous out of the 67 counties in the union. There's 10 water treatment facilities located all across Seminole County, and it treats and provides for over 5 million gallons of water per year. So with all this water, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be in place to deliver it to the citizens of Seminole County. So the main issue, pun intended, water mains are the major pipeline delivering water from these facilities to the citizens of Seminole County. The issues with the water mains breaking from a lack of infrastructure has been a prevalent problem recently. It's been introducing toxins into the water supply and also cutting off supply to many of the residents of Seminole County. Just this year in June, there was a water issue for a huge area in Sanford, spanning from State Road 46 all the way down to West Lake Mary Boulevard. And then also in July of 2023, there was a water advisory issue for over 400 homes within Winter Springs. So this is obviously a prevalent issue that's been very more common than we'd like to see. And so that's why we were asked to look into it and see what's we have. So first we're gonna go over the budgeting. So obviously with water infrastructure, it takes money. So you have the budget and fiscal management division. They essentially plan the budget, and this for the 2023-2024 year, the budget was over $1 billion. Then the Board of County Commissioners then approves the budget, and then they implement. As for this planned year, $5 million is dedicated to the water improvement. So it's not a lot in the grand scheme of the entire budget. And with all the issues, it's showing that we might need to dedicate money. Citizens can also petition the division to dedicate money for the particular area. These meetings are held in a public forum, so like any other forum, citizens are more than welcome to come, present their own arguments, advocate for where they feel the money is best suited, and then go. And then moving on to the utility inspection. So the utility engineering team is responsible basically in Seminole County. They inspect water main, they inspect all the infrastructure, make sure it's up to par. And then they check all the water mains and the underground, while cities are tasked to check the infrastructure, pipes that are delivering water throughout to their residents residing there. If there is an issue, the utility engineering team will submit a request to allocate money towards repairing or fixing or improving that infrastructure, and then it has to be approved by the commissioners. So to move on to the next step, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Zach.
Thank you, Josh. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Zachary Schneider, and what we've been tasked with researching here is how we can improve our infrastructure in Seminole County. And first, we're going to discuss what the current strategies are that Seminole County already did. Or a couple things that we already do in Seminole County that are really good for conserving water. First thing is that there are standards that are enforced. They're set forth in chapters 403 of Florida statutes, chapter 62-4 Florida Administrative Code. And they set water standards to ensure that drinking water is healthy and safe. And they implement measures to prevent pollution and protect water from contamination. There's also other conservation strategies that some use. This is an image of a water reclamation facility. This is in Altamonte Springs. It's the regional water reclamation facility that's there. And it's designed to treat as much as 12 million gallons of wastewater per day and separates sewage from the water. And then that water is reclaimed and it goes back into the area as irrigation. It's not drinking. So one of the ways that we can raise awareness and help to improve the water infrastructure in Seminole County is through education. And, by involving community seminars, and maybe it can make residents more aware of the issues that are happening with infrastructure. That way we can get more funding, essentially, get more government actions behind this sort of thing, because the budgeting that we have it's not sufficient really if you want to employ any other sort of future strategies. So the first step really is raising awareness, saying that our water infrastructure is not sufficient. We need more money, and through education awareness, we can make bigger changes happen, essentially, before we can talk about what some of those are. Okay. So one of the things that to really address in Seminole County also is that if there's any sort of that we want to see, we have to address the environmental justice concern, because we have first of all, environmental justice is very meaningful involvement of all people regardless of race, color, national origin, for them with respect to development, implementation and enforcement of environmental laws. So the issue is that we have environmental laws, no matter, and even though they're followed to the black letter of the law, there's still things that happen that there's negative externalities that happen. Like the water reclamation facilities and the water sewage facilities are all placed in low communities and right in the middle of black in Southern Cal. They have a tendency to do that, even though they're following the law. I'm going to turn it over to Josh to talk about some of the other environmental concerns.
Yeah, so the inaccessibility of water is just a major issue. With these boil water initiatives, you're really limiting the amount of people that can even do that. It's a cost money. You know, it takes infrastructure takes having like the ability to work. So, you know, unfortunately in some of these lower income neighborhoods, it's not an option. And there's also issues with selective projects like the State Road 46 and water main replacement project. That was a project done last year, and it replaced the water main, the major road in State Road 46 in Santa Florida. And that is the road that goes along where pretty much most of the commercial areas are. It's also, if you look at the map, this is a map of the Sanford area, and the blue represents a white majority population, and the green is African American, and the yellow is Hispanic. So in that boil water initiative that happened earlier that I spoke, the area that was impacted was this area of Sanford. So it shows that it's impacting these minority heavy areas kind of the most. And you know, we need to take a look at that and really try to address that and make sure that there is that environmental justice aspect to this water infrastructure issue. And like my colleague Zach was saying, you know, the water treatment facilities have a tendency to be in these minority dense areas. And, you know, and that's just the unfortunate thing is that they put the government will put these things here, and it's just impacting these communities negatively, and it's really something that has to be addressed when considering this. Exactly.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah. So before we can, so we're going to talk about future strategies. There are things that we can do after we receive, you know, sufficient funding, and after we raise awareness, we can get more collaborative projects completed. You know, it's going to take a lot of awareness and a lot of money. Some of the future strategies that we can look at, you know, are developing great programs to help our infrastructure, you know, grant programs. It's just essentially raising money through the cause that we want to raise money. Grants can be especially beneficial for smaller communities that struggle with raising money, and Seminole County is the smallest counties in Florida, despite having, you know, a significant population. So one of the future strategies that we came up with is some of these climate resilient strategies. In our research, we found that, you know, this is like an architectural sort of thing or stormwater. These are two strategies that Denmark is currently employing. One is just a climate park, and the other is it doubles as a skate park. And underneath each one is our tanks that can store millions of gallons of storm. Another thing that can be utilized is this is a vertical village in Singapore, which integrates senior living and water conservation. Stormwater runoff is stored in rainwater harvesting tank and is reused for irrigation. And it's really a beautiful architectural structure. And a lot of collaboration went into utilizing this sort of strategy, and it takes a critical amount of funding. So a lot of awareness needs to be raised for this sort of issue. But the focus of the project was to encourage elderly residents to engage in an active lifestyle among younger generations. So it sort of doubles as, it knocks out two birds with one stone, you know, it's a water conservation and also is, housing for the elderly. So you having something like this in Seminole County would be really beneficial for the community overall. So in conclusion, we'll pass over to Josh to just bring it over.
Yeah, in conclusion, the water infrastructure in Seminole County is just not up to par. We've had multiple breakdowns in the water infrastructure. It has resulted in serious repercussions, and it will continue to result in serious repercussions. So education is really the key to promoting change. Just informing the population of these issues. Many people don't know that there's an issue. They think, oh, that's just another water thing. It's just, same old, same. But unfortunately, we have to inform the public that these aren't normal and that there needs to be change. It needs to be efforts to be dedicated to this change. And with that, we can actually promote and see better water infrastructure in Seminole. And that wraps up our presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Justice and my colleagues will talk about fire contamination in Seminole County. Specifically, we were tasked with looking into 1,4-dioxane in Seminole County, how this became an issue, the Siemens factory's role in the escalation of this contamination, the lack of regulation and transparency and how this has perpetuated the issue. And then my colleagues are going to talk about some examples and responses in other states to how they handle 1,4-dioxane and other chemicals. And then also one of my potential solutions and mitigation efforts that Seminole County could take. So for starters, what is 1,4-dioxane and how does it get into the water? So 1,4-dioxane is a synthetic chemical that is composed of ethylene oxide and glycol. It does appear colorless, it is flammable, and it's easily dissolvable in water. It is primarily used as a chemical solvent in chemical manufacturing. So this is a wide variety of things from your cosmetics to your detergents, shampoos, pharmaceuticals, and even food additives. 1,4-dioxane is released into the environment where it's produced or used. So again, where you're using those cosmetics, detergents, shampoos, with 1,4-dioxane, you have the potential to be releasing that into the environment. It can contaminate air and soil as well, although our focus today is on water contamination. However, once it is in soil, it easily can go into the groundwater. So how does 1,4-dioxane contaminate Seminole County's water? Well, it has infiltrated the Floridan aquifer, which provides the water to Seminole County as well as Sanford County and Lake Mary. It is used as an additive to a chemical called TCA, which is used to prevent damage to electronics, which is exactly what Siemens factory was using 1,4-dioxane for, as they created a telephone operating system. So from 1968 to 2003, the Siemens factory operated, and they were cited numerous times for improperly and carelessly handling their chemicals. So this included things from flushing chemicals down drains. Employees reported chemical puddling inside and outside the factory. So they used to stack chemical drums. And actually in 2015, so 12 years after the Siemens factory closed, there was still over 120 drums at the site. And that's because they had no record of site cleanup and they were not removing their drums. So the aquifer was extremely vulnerable beneath the factory. So there were sinkholes that essentially formed funnels for the chemicals to go down into the aquifer. which is how one-paradoxane got into there. And that's why you find the highest concentration of one-paradoxane underneath the factory floor in. So this is just an overview of the timeline of how it escalated in Seminole County, revolving around the Siemens factory. So the Siemens factory opened in 1968. However, it wasn't until 2001 that the Florida Department of Environmental Protection actually identified one-paradoxane as the plant. And then it wasn't until 2013 that it was actually discovered in the drinking water. A year prior to that, Florida did adopt, or the EPA did adopt a record for 0.35 parts per billion. However, that is only a record. It's not a regulated or enforceable guideline, which is why in 2015 and 2016 sampling, 3 times the recommended paradoxane was discovered. And then since then, the Siemens factory has had to settle multiple multi-million-dollar settlements for their contamination. And then Lake Mary started a water treatment facility. However, Seminole and Sanford County did not have a water treatment plant. They simply shut down the most contaminated wells. Why is this a concern? Well, one-paradoxane is a forever chemical that is resistant to breaking down and is also listed as a probable human carcinogen by the EPA. So more than 3 dozen human factory workers actually have settled lawsuits for claiming that they developed cancer while being exposed as the factory. And removal of this is not ordinary. So for a family to implement a reverse osmosis system in their home, or just a single kitchen unit to remove one-paradoxane would cost hundreds of dollars, and it would cost thousands of dollars per single home to implement it throughout their house. One of the other bigger issues is the fact that Florida, on average, is consuming 615 million gallons of water daily, and one-paradoxane is different than other water contaminants because it has the ability to sink down into the cracks and crevices of the aquifer. So as we're consuming water, the one-paradoxane isn't necessarily coming out with consumption, so the concentration of it is actually increasing. And then the timeline of contamination is unknown. So although it was identified at the plant in 2001 and then identified in 2015, we know that the Siemens factory has been using one-paradoxane since 1968. So that is decades of usage that is going for in that low concentration levels. We don't know. There are no federal regulations as of now. There are voluntary guidelines, but they vary widely because these guidelines don't have to be enforced. So that's why you have Lake Mary implementing a water treatment facility, but Seminole and Sanford County shutting down wells. This is a major concern because the effects on humans of one-paradoxane in consumed water is unknown. So although one-paradoxane is inactive, it's added to other. So we don't know not only its cumulative harm, but we don't know its interactive when it's being added to other chemicals. And we don't know this because health research and data is uncertain and sparse. So there is no concrete, conclusive data on the causes or on the effects on humans that are consuming one-paradoxane. However, we do know that based on animal research, that tumors and cancers have been found in animals, as well as liver and kidney damage have been found in rats who have had prolonged exposure to one-paradoxane in their drinking water. We've also observed poisoning and even fatality in animals that have been exposed. And then something else that's extremely interesting about one-paradoxane is that it's actually listed as a hazardous Clean Air Act, because we know that inhaled exposure to one-paradoxane has caused vertigo, drowsiness, headaches, anorexia, and a wide variety of other effects, which it's likely that when it's consumed through water, it's similar effects. So what's perpetuating this is the lack of regulations and the transparency. So like I said, the recommended limits are non-enforceable, so there's no obligation to inform beyond any efforts, which is what's called the lack of public disclosure and detailed awareness. So when Seminole County did become informed of one-paradoxane in presence in its water, They weren't proactive and they even trivialized the issue by telling the public that there's nothing to worry about, even though the reality is they don't know that because we know they are. And when county commissioners and officials were asked about this chemical, they weren't even aware of its existence, let alone the fact that it treated the aquifer. And now my colleague Dorian is going to discuss examples and responses.
Justice, good evening, my name is Dorian. Fortunately, my research was to see what other states have gone through the same example, and there's quite a bit. There was about 15 other states that have actually reported on it, so we don't know other states what they have done or not. However, the one state that I found that did the best in regards to responding to this issue was the state of New York. In 2015, PFAS in 1,4-dioxane was found in the Long Island aquifer, and Long Island is home to 4 counties, which is Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk. How did I get in there? There's a number of different reasons. One of them would be the manufacturing operations, such as taking away any type of information and sludge that was there. Additionally, through old infrastructure that was made in the 1950s, piping, and also through negligence and misuse of firefighting foam that they've used. However, New York was swift to respond, and as such, they were tasked to undertake, and the New York Department of Conservation and the New York Department of Health was able to swiftly respond thanks to, in 2016, a $5 million donation by the governor to immediately support everything. Now, New York was able to do all this through what they call their 4 guiding principles. The first is taking a systematic, science-based, and data-driven decisions. The second is holding polluters accountable. The third, prioritizing vulnerable populations and communities. And lastly, legal prevention. So we'll briefly go into all 4 of them and see how they did it. The first one is taking a systematic, science-based, and data-driven decisions. New York went out of their way to seek new technology wherever it was. Not only that, they went out of their way to try to make new technology and drive the creation of these new testing so they can be better prepared to figure out what's happening and how to combat it. Additionally, they surveyed over 2,500 facilities that may have used, stored, or managed PFAS or 1,4-dioxane, and they initiated evaluation over 2,000 landfills and Superfund sites as well. Lastly, though, and I think it's probably the best one, is they fostered academic partnerships to bolster the state's research program and capabilities. Specifically, they made the SUN Whitestone Group Center for Clean Water, which has advanced 7 pilot studies to try to evaluate the effectiveness and to try to figure out a way to eliminate 1,4-dioxane and PFAS from the system. Next, going to holding polluters accountable. New York is aggressively pursuing the responsible parties and making sure that they go out there to pay for it, including any remediation needed to pay for whatever cleanup and to the public health and to the environment. They secured numerous core orders of big companies, manufacturers, specifically in New York, but they've also been some sort of middleman with other manufacturers as well to make sure that they get under the legal limits that are not going to be affecting other places. And they've done this and mandating the companies who are responsible to undertake a comprehensive investigation of how that got to that and how they can fix it. Additionally, we're holding polluters accountable. They've initiated litigation outside of the state of New York, going after 3 companies in South Carolina, multi-litigation lawsuits such as 3M and DuPont. But the biggest thing I thought was they were also going to go after the Department of Defense for the misuse of the firefighting foam. And they even stated, quote, if the Department of Defense fails to step up and take proper action to clean the pollution it is legally responsible for, New York State will take all appropriate action to hold DOD accountable and protect public health. Moving on to prioritizing vulnerable populations, New York has made it a point to make sure that everything is prioritized by proximity to the water and to areas that are most affected, specifically by the communities where these areas are affected the most. They try to take care of areas close to the airports, anywhere that have Department of Defense facilities. And when detected, they rapidly engage surveys, and they also do water bottle strategies to get clean water to all. And lastly, if there are any issues with people in regards to actually having the issue, they will help pay for the vital monitoring by specifically partnering with an agency for the Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and that is advancing risk assessment and new health studies to evaluate what is going on and how we can better. Leading with prevention, since 2015, New York has gone out of to make sure that they are in the best possible situation for their community. They ensure safer consumer products by letting the consumers know what's inside of their products. They've additionally passed the Child Safety Safe Products Act, which requires manufacturers in the state of New York to disclose the presence of any hazardous material. However, they are also doing work with these manufacturers to let them know that they understand that it is a hard path to get into the legal limits. But as long as everyone is in the up and up and the communication is going both ways, New York is going to work with these manufacturers, that they can continue to work in New York and not have to try to move their company somewhere else. Additionally, they have done a lot of investments. 2.5 billion has gone into to the Clean Water Infrastructure Act. 1 billion into subsequent funding. 1 billion for fund. In or the Environmental Protection Fund. They've also gone out of their way to establish themselves as the leaders in green chemistry, additionally taking away products such as by 2017, and by 2019, New York was awarded the award for leadership by the Council for Innovative Programs because of the fact that they were adopting such measures. And most notably, New York went out of their way in 2022 to establish a bill and a law stating that certain levels were going to be illegal and that the rest of the people in the state of New York needed to get household products. So with all that, New York has given us here in Florida a blueprint for success. The DEC in New York made it a point to reach out to the constituents of their state to let them know what was happening. There was no hiding of the ball. It was completely on the up and up as they tried to let everybody know what was happening and what they were trying to do. What they did do that same example by using communication and community involvement by the school districts involved. That they can go out there and actually help in research, gather information, and in a sense have boots on the ground. And this last thing is just an example of what New York sent out to everybody, which was a pamphlet and PDF, easily able to reach that show what we need to every one of their state citizens to be. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Josh. And you bring it home.
So I guess I should have forget where I came from.
So I'm going to be taking on solution and mitigation efforts. So essentially, this is what the what we do water treatment facilities ran similar. Most of the water treatment facilities, they only use these big words for regulation, population, sanitation, filtration, disinfection, treat the water, but essentially what it comes down to is it doesn't take out 1,4-dioxane. 1,4-dioxane is an important chemical, but it doesn't mean zero. It's not convincing. So there are methods, and there's been 2 proven methods that have taken out in eliminating 1,4-dioxane from water supply. So the first method is chlorination. So this uses chlorine, it treats the water, disinfects it. The problem with this method is that it actually has to be treated after to remove the chlorine before returning it to the public for use, because this actually creates a byproduct that is worse for the environment than 1,4-dioxane. So this obviously is not a very feasible method. But however, advanced oxidation process is the gold stuff. Use the peroxide and UV light or ozone to remove the chemical from the water. It's highly effective, it's cost efficient. It costs anywhere from 10 cents to $10 for 1,000 gallons. It most likely require 2 treatments to go through with Florida produces with over 5 million, so it'd be a little over $1 million at 10 cents and close to 100 million at $10. Obviously, that's a very big, wide amount, but hopefully we can get a discount, getting close to that 10 cents. So the budget for Seminole County is $250 million. So obviously, and there's only 5 million of that. Well, there's water infrastructure and water, so if we can get the county to maybe delegate some more money to fixing this 1,4-dioxane issue, then we could possibly come up with, the amount to fund these projects. But however, if the county does push back on this, there's other ways. So we have ad valorem property tax, and it's what everyone pays every year. It's the property, they assess your house and they will collect taxes and they use that money for improvements elsewhere in the county. So that could be something that they could implement to really fund this project. But there's also ways to implement like special taxes to tax upon citizens, but that would have to be done in general law, which would mean that all the counties could collect the same tax. So that would take lobbying, take a lot of time, which is something that, you know, the league and the clinic could possibly do in the future. And so, but the main thing is about education on it. The county has been downplaying this in 1,4-dioxane that it imposes. The constituents can really drive that change. Educating the residents, Seminole County chemical is like it's so imperative to driving this movement forward. We can do it through social media campaigns, flyers, speaking events, news articles, segments, just something to get this word out and inform the population that this is a prevalent issue that we have. If the county develops a passion to deal with the issue, we can petition for action and help drive the county to actually take an initiative and take a stance and move forward to eliminate this harm. So in conclusion, 1,4-dioxane is one chemical that's been hurting this Seminole County residents. An action can result in catastrophic consequences for the health of Seminole County residents. However, it's not hopeless. There are feasible ways to remove this this chemical, and public support is key in achieving that remedy. And if we can work together, leagues support and clinics work, I think this could be something that could really do a positive change in. Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Zach Sheridan, my colleague. We're going to discuss Florida weatherization system. All right, so this is just a breakdown of what we're going to go over. First, we're going to discuss the weatherization assistance program, how it's administered from the federal government all the way down to how it's dispersed at the local to the applicants who apply for it. We're going to talk about what the program covers, you know, what the weatherization methods are, who's eligible for the benefits, the application process, and then I'll turn things over to Chris and we'll talk about the procurement and the monitoring. All right, so let's get started. So the weatherization program, the weatherization assistance program, it helps low-income seniors and low-income families to permanently reduce their energy bills by making their homes more energy efficient. There's a program that they contracts with contractors to perform energy efficiency checks, repair and insulation, water heaters, air conditioning, and much more. So the program was created in 1976 under the title the Conservation and Production Act. It currently sits under Chapter 42 of the U.S. Code, and it recently celebrated its 45th anniversary in 2021. Right now it's in its 47th year. It has a $300 million federal budget, and in 2023, that budget for Seminole County was around $21,000. So it's pretty modest, and there were planned 23 weatherization projects within that budget. So this is a diagram of how funds are administered. It starts with the federal, US federal government, that they have all the money. Then the money is then allocated to two separate federal agencies, the US Department of Energy and the US Department of Health and Human Services. They have a smaller fund that they send money to, which is the federal low income home energy assistance program. But then both of these programs, both of these agencies rather, funnel the money to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. They then the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity give the money to the subrecipient they contract with to administer the weatherization program. And then applicants apply to the Osceola Council on Aging to apply for the weatherization assistance program. So this is the subrecipient, this is the Osceola Council on Aging. They cover both Orange and Osceola County. They must adhere to the code of regulations, chapter 10, section 40, and chapter 2, section 200 of the Federal Regulation Code. They enter into a three-year contract that they enter into with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. And then they have monitoring that they must do. They must monitor their expenditures. They must perform building reports, and they must perform quality control inspection reports, which we'll talk later about. Chris talks about the monitoring. So this is what the program offers. It's not every, but this is a good list of things that they offer. There's lots of things that they offer to mechanically help make the more efficient, clean, to repair, replace heating and cooling systems. They install duct and heat pipe installation, repair leaks in heating and cooling ducts. They do things for the building, just the general construction of the house, or ceiling repair and replace windows is a big one. A lot of people have leaks around their windows. So they really go in, they perform these checks to make sure the home is really energy efficient. And they also offer some educational activities. They educate on potential household hazards such as carbon monoxide. Mold is a big one, which can kill and moisture. So this is just a comprehensive of the organization system. And there are some other things that they also offer, but it requires prior approval by the Economic Opportunity. There's things that people can apply for. They can request purchase or lease a vehicle, which I think is more for the Osceola Council. Sometimes they need to have vehicles to go back and forth. All of that $21,000 is allocated not just for the individual applicants, it's also for any sort of expense that the council has administered from. So this is a list of just what you need to be in order to be eligible for the program. It's just a pretty general list. You need a Florida ID. You need to provide proof of your social security card, any minor birth certificates you live in the home, proof of the last 2 months of all household income, proof of home ownership, your last 2 electric bills to prove that you reside there, proof of disability. This is just a chart that shows who qualifies based on your income. You're eligible for the program if you're living by yourself and your monthly income is only $2,400. And if you have 5 people in the house, then you're making less than $5,070. So in order to apply for the assistance program, you can work with you apply through the Osceola Council. It is a first come first served basis. However, you can sometimes applications fall on waiting lists, but there's applications that are waiting lists they do get prioritized based on consistent And you get points, certain points for how if you're disabled, if you're elderly and disabled, if you have a household with children, and if you have a household that has a. Now I'm gonna pass things off to Chris to talk about procurement.
Yeah, so, if you qualify, you're probably wondering, how do these contractors get screened, you know, how do they material get screened? I mean, any of this, you know, how does it problem? So the subrecipient, which is Osceola Council on Aging, they have to write actual standards. And these standards are for any type of size, any type of property, any type of equipment, or any type of services that they're gonna acquire. And the standard is it has to be practical, has to be open, has to be free competition, and it has to be the most economical to the subrecipient, Osceola Council on Aging. Once they have this standard and these written procedures, they must submit it to the Department of Economic Opportunity just to get approved, make sure that they're following these standards of free open competition. And then once they have this process, then they sell the units either by a bid or they rotate it to each contractor. That's up to the recipient's discretion. If there's a lot of contractors, then they might rotate it. If there's not many, then they might just give it to that single contractor. It just really is up to them and independent contractor. When they do that, once they send it to the contractor, you know, they have to send the actual work that they're required to do, just to make sure that the contractor is eligible to complete that work. Usually the subrecipient is the one that submits a contract between the contractor and the subrecipient, and you have to make sure that there is no conflict of interest. So any employee of the Osceola Council on Aging cannot submit funds to a contractor in their account. It just has to be free and open. And then there's also material standards. So if they're buying wood, if they're buying insulation, anything like that, they have to align to the Code of Federal Regulations to make sure those materials are up to par. And then there are 4 ways that they submit these bid processes. It's either through a small procedure, which is for equipment less than $5,000. Sealed bids is usually for things that are $25,000 or more. Competitive proposal is just, you know, they submit it to a bunch of contractors and see who qualifies. And then if you don't have any of these 3, then you can go to the non-competitive proposal. But you have to try to find these first 3 first, the small procedures, sealed bids, and competitive proposals before you move on to the non-competitive proposals. Once they submit, once they choose a contractor, they have to actually have a written, like a record of why they chose the contract. How they chose the contract, and the price that they chose the contract. So just to see if it's actually economical to them. And then these are just examples of what are not free and open competition. These are violations, and you can actually, the subrecipient, Osceola Council on Aging, can be terminated for not following free and open competition. One of the no compensation, just like I already mentioned. The second one that is really important is the brand name. The subrecipient cannot specify on a specific brand if there's an equal product that can do the same job. If they do, that is a violation and they can be terminated. And then these are the other couple others. So, how do they choose these contractors? That is most important. We want to make sure these contractors are doing the job and they're doing the job. And they usually do it based on price, quality, and integrity of the contract. Compliance with public policy, and record of past performance. So if these contractors have already worked with the subrecipient and they have a good record, then we'll probably work with them again. They've done their job. And you have to make sure they actually have the financial and technical resources to do their job. Once this is done and the contractors are actually working on the unit, the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity actually monitors the subrecipient. And what they monitor is all of their expenditures, all of their reimbursements, and the actual units that they're working on. So they go visit the units and make sure that the units are actually being worked on and that they're up to the standard that they're required to be. Once that happens, the Department of Economic Opportunity actually compares records just to make sure that the price that they're paying is the most economical to the program. That way they're saving money, and if there's money left over, they can use that money to weather other units as well. So yeah, once the Department of Economic comes, they actually do home visits. And they have to complete a quality control inspection report. And what this report entails is to make sure that our safe work practices being followed, that the materials are up to standard. Yeah, and so they just have to make sure that there's no lead being used as well inside the home. Just make sure everything is good and safe. Once they do this, they have to submit a report to the subrecipient that has a record of any type of issue that they have with actual documentation. So if they have photographs, they can include that into the report. They also have to recommend corrective actions that they find in the house of the home. And any workmanship issues that they find. So if it's high work, they will report that. The subrecipient actually has to respond as well to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity with the actions that they've taken to correct the issues that they found. And if they fail to do this, then the funds can be withheld from the subrecipient. And then they also have to monitor their inventory. So any property, equipment, or services above $300 has to be reported. And these records actually, if it's like equipment that is owned by the subrecipient and the contractor needs to use them, they actually have to sign off the equipment and sign it back just to keep a record of that material. So Osceola Council on Aging actually only spends $250,000 this year. They are planning 21 units. And because of this, they can elect to have an audit. It is not required for them to have an audit, but it is up to their choice. But if they do choose to have this audit, they can't use funds from the service to complete this audit. They have to use non-federal funds to complete this. And then also, okay, so the Osceola Council on Aging can actually be terminated for cause. What is a for cause termination? It is usually like a misuse of funds, conflict of interest, or lack of compliance with the rules, or even disregard for competitive bidding. So if they have multiple bidders, and they only give it to one person, that would be a violation and it would be a termination. The subrecipient actually has to respond within 30 days. If not, they have penalties. Some of the penalties is actually a notice of default and then a notice of termination. And once this happens, they can appeal and have an administrative hearing. So hopefully, Osceola County is doing pretty well actually, and so they haven't had anything like this. So the next steps, if you qualify for the program, please apply. It is free to those who qualify. But if you don't, there are ways that you can weatherize your home on your own. Some of it is by just watching your heating and cooling, watching your cooking appliances, watching your water heater and refrigerator. Making sure you turn off your fan, that takes up energy. So if you turn it off, that will lower your energy output. Make sure you don't use the stove as well as a microwave. There's a microwave for that. Also use cold water when possible. Whenever the water heater has to heat that water, it takes up a lot of energy. Also use some tap lighting. Normally we're using water lighting, but at home, turn on the lamp. It would probably be helpful, and it's that's energy. Lastly, also switch to fluorescent bulbs. Those are the swirly. They're really cool. And so please switch over to those. Very helpful. And lastly, use the earth. The earth is very good at keeping good climate. Especially here in Florida, we have very good climate. And if your house is cold, open up the window during the summer. If your house is hot, then open up the window during winter, and it will help lower that energy output. So yeah, if you guys apply, if you guys qualify, please apply. If you don't, follow these tips and hopefully your energy will be lower. And that's our presentation.
Good evening, I'm Lori Office, and Josh and I are going to talk to you about HOAs and Florida-friendly landscaping. Now, we were tasked with taking a look around the favorite organization in Florida, the HOAs. If any of you are homeowners, you're quite familiar with that. If you're not a homeowner, you're not a homeowner, you know somebody that's had to work with. Now, we are going to go through on this presentation here, Josh and I, about what the issue is. Landscaping versus water conservation. Those two are not necessarily complementary, especially when it comes to HOA requirements. We dug into that a little bit. There's a bit of a problem. There's a thing called HOA covenants. Well, there is a solution that can help us with water conservation, and that is fluid landscaping. What is that? We'll get into that in a few moments. But what about the law? What do I have the right to do? What does the law say I have to do? And where does the HOA come in with all these fancy legal things they make us sign? Talk about that and then give you a call to action and where we can go with this. So as we go through here, our goals were to confirm the authority for these contracts and covenants. Okay, contracts are serious business. Florida and the United States, our law is built on contract law, common law. Where does this lie? They get pretty confusing. We've also got statutes. There's a few 100,000 votes in this country, and so where does that need to play with contracts? I give you guys the results. We've done it, and that is what we are here to do tonight. So the first issue we're going to talk about is landscaping and water conservation. As probably you already know, they're not necessarily beneficial, and HOAs frequently put some really strict rules, like, wow, how many of you got a citation for having like one little weed, or your grass was not exactly the same as your neighbor's, or you used this color mulch instead of that color mulch? It gets that bad, it really does. But some of these are restrictions that go to landscaping that is not really the best for some of the environmental problems that we're facing today. Excessive watering, fertilizing, pesticides, the things leak into our those today, and the poisons getting in there. We are using a lot of water in this state. So how can we help as individuals to really want to care? This is just an example of an HOA covenant. It's if you are a homeowner, it's one of the 2,598 pages you have to sign and close it. Just kidding. That just felt like how many I had to sign when I closed. And a portion of those were the HOA, and it was all kinds of scary language, like if your grass is too long, we're going to slap a lien on your house, or we're going to put a lock box on your. I mean, it's scary stuff, and it's legal. A house is a big deal, and the HOAs seem to have their fingers all over it. So what are my rights? So I'm signing away. And I get these little letters, well, as I call them, from the HOA about things I've got to do because of this orange piece of mold on the corner with that $100 power. What does it come to when it comes to the landscaping? I really do care. I grew up in Florida, grew up on the Everglades, grew up on the Springs, and this state is a beautiful state. That's why so many people care. So what can I do about it? Well, the HOA seem to prevent me by making me use St. Augustine grass and things like that. This is a problem. It's using too much water. It's polluting our aquifers. So what is the solution? The solution is, part of the solution is, let me say, it's not the only solution. Something called Florida-friendly landscaping. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I'm trying to say it a few times before you record yourself on Zoom. What is it? It uses sustainable landscapes. It helps reduce how much water you have to use. It avoids having to put additional chemicals and fertilizers and things into our yards. So why do we want it? Well, it's kind of obvious, but there's a few more reasons in here in case you need to explain that to somebody who may not get it. We also want to have our beautiful state, preserved, not only for ourselves, but our guests, our visitors, and our families in the generations to come. It is possible to have a sustainable and pretty lawn. Now, all the benefits that we've been talking about, it stretches beyond just what we're thinking about. You've heard about the problem with bees. Having sustainable, Florida-friendly landscaping can help promote the bees, give them a place to propagate, which is becoming less and less. Wildlife, birds, all kinds of things. It's very interesting that you would think that the law and the environmental protection don't always have the same idea. We know we want it, but here, interestingly, in the Florida legislature, it is actually noted that there is a compelling interest to have Florida-friendly landscaping. So to talk about this motivation, which we call legislative intent, and also how that relates to the law and the contracts that you sign with your homeowner, my colleague will elaborate on those legal implications.
Yeah, so our question that was under Florida law, can homeowners living within an HOA freely choose what landscaping they want to put in on their property and what can be done to educate homeowners on their rights? We searched a lot of stats. We went through a lot of code. Everything was pointing towards the HOA winning, pointing towards the HOA having say for what you do with your house within the confines of the HOA. However, we found something. Florida statute 7203075, subsection B. So essentially what this statute says that any provision of a HOA covenant, HOA bylaws, declarations, incorporation, articles of incorporation, anything that relates to restricting a homeowner from implementing Florida-friendly landscaping is null and void. So that provision would be like it's never even read. They can't enforce anything. They can't make a landscaping that is not friendly, Florida friendly. And they can't. So basically, it doesn't. Yeah. So the Florida legislature actually put in the same statute. They talked about the compelling public interest, and they said that basically the Florida friendly landscaping is such a compelling public interest that any provision stating otherwise and restricting that would be a violation of public policy. And going in, like, so what does this mean? So it just means that homeowners have full autonomy for what landscaping goes into their front yards, as long as it's Florida friendly, as long as it meets the statutory definition of the Florida friendly landscape. And now it's always proposed like contracts are binding in Florida. All covenants, all HOA bylaws, declarations, everything you sign in, like you said, like those thousand pages, they all are binding. However, if a provision of a contract violates public policy, it would be an illegal contract. So therefore, the contract, that provision of the contract, we just like wiped out by court of law. It was challenged. And then going on, just what does it mean in relation to this? It just means that essentially that provision restricting someone from implementing a Florida friendly landscaping, or even the HOA acting and saying, no, you can't put in that shrub, like that would be an illegal action by them. So therefore, it would be a violation of that public policy. And then, so contracts are binding. Florida statute outranks the contract. So essentially, that's superior to all. You can't go against the Florida statute. It's stating what is legal, what isn't. So, in going in, and so, but how can the HOA work with this statute? You know, it doesn't always have to be adversary. They can implement some aesthetically pleasing Florida-friendly landscape. There, if you go online, there's a list of like what would be a Florida-friendly landscape. Beautiful. It's like natural Florida-friendly fauna. So you want to have that. The HOA can implement that successfully and not have an issue where it's them versus the homeowner. They can actually incorporate and work together. However, why didn't we know? It's like that going back to what I said at the beginning. We had to go through many statutes to find this, very deep in the code. And that's why this education aspect is so important. Florida-friendly landscaping is so important to protecting the natural beauty of Florida. The rain and everything. Like we don't want to lose that due to like these high water intake grasses, like the St. Augustine grass. So it's important to educate the population so they know their rights and they know what they can do going forward. And what are the homeowners remedies? Essentially, if they are told they can't, unfortunately, they probably have the legal system, but in the end, the judge would find in favor of the homeowner, because it would be, they have the law on their side. The home, everything points towards actually protecting the state in this case. And that's, very important when it comes to battling a case out for a judge. And so, switch back over.
So now what's next? You know, you've got rights. That's pretty awesome to know about my rights. How am I going to implement them? Where do we go from here? Community-minded and environmentally minded individuals, you can start doing this in your own communities. You can start implementing Florida-friendly landscaping. You can spread the word with your neighborhood organizations, your organization, social media, etc. Spread the word. You can work with the HOAs, as Josh mentioned, the adversary. I am working with IFAS, some of these things that are really good for the environment. Can I work with the HOA? You get those board notices besides the budget that they're spending on whatever it is they're spending that we don't really need. Let's work together to do some good. We can do this. And if they don't, so another thing, take it further. You can go to your city commissioners, your representatives, your congressmen. You can lobby for not only implementing this statute for our Florida-friendly landscaping in our homes, but about commercial. Hey, there's so much pesticide property. We can take it from the court for them. So how can you go about this here? There's something, if you've never heard of IFAS, it's really easy to find it. It's from the University of Florida, the IFAS extension. I'll just say IFAS. If you write down anything, if you're interested in it, IFAS, Google it. They have all this amazing information to walk you through step by step. In fact, they've got this huge manual, but you don't have to go through the manual. You can go through these 9 steps that if each one of us worked on these 9 steps in our own personal home, we could make an impact that is much larger than we could ever imagine. At one time, I'd love to give you more statistics. I'll give you something to take with you tonight to do something better. Here's some of your resources, the IFAS. Join other nonprofits. There are other, the Florida Springs Council, all kinds of different environmental organizations that would love to know this. Media, how about PSAs? How about Right House, the Spectrum, all of those type of things. If you know somebody who's a photographer, a news person, yeah, tell them about it. Come to meetings, get involved. You're involved. That's what you're here. You can take this and collaborate with additional organizations as well. Like I said, one of those projects, take it up to the legislature. You can go through social media, websites, pamphlets. You know how to do that. That's why we're here. So I really have enjoyed working with Josh and with the clinic on all of these programs that we've been doing. It's so exciting for me as a homeowner to know that I have the right to plant Florida landscape, and that made me very happy to be involved in this. So thank you very much for your time. I will start talking.
For questions, I want to bring everybody back up. If you have questions about any of the presentations that have been given tonight, all of the students will be available to answer those questions. If you're joining us online, please just either put your question in the chat or raise your hand and I will unmute you. So for example, we have already received a question about whether there are attorneys who are representing people in these sorts of cases where they want to implement Florida-friendly landscaping, but they're in a covenant-restricted area. And the answer is yeah. If you Google Florida-friendly landscaping lawyers, there are quite a lot of them actually who are working on these types of cases when people are in battle with their HOAs over what's legally allowed. Because as the students told you, unfortunately, just because you're legally in the right doesn't mean you're not going to have to go through a very lengthy process to prove that. So there are a number of attorneys throughout the state who are working on those cases to answer our online question. So I will turn it over to the students. I think we had our first question.
Yeah, I'm an HOA president of over 15 years. I've seen this subject before on Florida-friendly landscaping. And yes, I've been doing some work on it. Chapter 720 is the main chapter for HOAs. Chapter 7 373 is on Florida City Landscaping. My understanding is, if you submit, the homeowner submits an architecture review board application, whatever name it is, and it's all planned out and submitted, the HOA cannot reject it. And they can cite, chapter 737 on that. Another question for you on your 1,4-dioxane, is DOH involved? Department of Health.
In New York, Department of Health was.
I'm talking about here.
Okay.
Let's leave New York and New York. The difference between New York City and Miami is snow. Okay.
Another thing.
As for Florida, let's take a look at Seminole County. Have they looked at what the 4 points that New York on Long Island, Long Island. I'm from Rhode Island and Long Island's just a suburb. So it's Block Island, anyway. Have they looked at the strategy that New York has implemented, have they looked at it at specifically Seminole County, since we have a game going on in our backyard?
Yes, what I was able to find was Seminole County was in the process of doing their own research, and they were about to release that information to the public. They had stated at the end of November. I know I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I looked something up and I still couldn't find it.
So we're right now waiting for Seminole County to release their report, and they had something.
Well, to that point, what I would say is that this project gives us something to take to one of two commissioners who is kind of like-minded. So to me, but to me, what you did is something that we can actually demonstrate as having worked elsewhere. So, I mean, just as an aside, I was extremely happy with the results of your project. You guys all did a great job with the 1,4-dioxane. Orlando Sentinel brought it up, and I know more now than I did after the comprehensive Orlando Sentinel article. So really good job, everybody.
Thank you. Well, Chris, on your winterization, have you considered, okay, I'm an HVAC 25-year service engineer, okay? That means I hold a master's degree, okay? Have you looked at, on the window, the tight building syndrome? In other words, you make it so tight, the air quality inside the building is worse than it is outside if you don't have the proper ventilation.
I think that was outside the scope of our research, but we could look into that.
You need to take a look at that. I mean, the way they were engineered in the past, what they call a crack method. In other words, the windows were not that tight, and they would leak in for ventilation for exhaust fans or whatever, and that worked. Well, now if you make it tight, you're not gonna get any, infiltration at all.
If I may, I used to work in commercial HVAC, test and balance, and there is a percentage of outside air. We had to work with the Army Corps of Engineers to calculate that percentage, and that is an excellent stick building syndrome and outside air in Florida. Often we do want to tighten things up so that we don't get the outside air, and in fact, some unscrupulous energy conservations on the bill will tighten that out so there is no outside air. What we need more is efficiency and a way to ensure that the cold air stays inside and that we get enough fresh air in order to be healthy. And SIG building syndrome, while outside of the scope of this particular project, I think would be an exciting project for our future clinics going forward.
ASHRAE has changed their standard over the years, and I've been
Yes.
following on AC News,
Yes,
and the technology is there to
Yes.
have the right amount of ventilation.
yes,
We'll talk shop, it's CO2 sensors.
right on, absolutely. Yep. Great, it'd be an exciting project.
Yes. Chris, did you say that Osceola County Senior Organization is only using 250,000, 750,000 that they have available this year?
No, so every year the Department of Economic Opportunity sets a state plan, and the state plan allocates the money. So the Department of Economic Opportunity gave Osceola Council 250,000 to complete. And so that's what they have at their funds, is 250,000.
They used it.
Yeah, they're using it to plan about 21 units to others.
have a question about law. So is it better in Florida to do a lawsuit over the dioxins with a state, sue the state of Florida, have the state of Florida sue us, or is it better to have the county?
So I know there was a recent case down in, it was down in like South Florida, and they sued, I wanna say 3M. And they sued for a similar, like, they infected the water with like pollutants. And, I know it was the cities that actually were suing, and they just settled for like, let's say like $20 billion or something with 3M. And this was like, I think, in my research, it was like, probably like a few months ago. So I know the cities that can go after it. And so I think that might be the route. But I know, like, in our research, Siemens has already paid out some settlements, so I don't, there may be a issue of like a double jeopardy where they've already, been sued for something and they can't be punished, twice for one thing. So we would have to look into that and see.
Well, kind of following up a little bit on that. In the absence of federal or state regulation concerning that chemical, does that make it more difficult to go forward with the suit?
I would think.
Yeah.
New York was able, going back to New York, sorry, but New York was able, because of the fact that there was no EPA funding or specifically stated thing, they were going out of their way to try to push for that. So it could be that in the next year or so, due to the fact that New York has gone a certain route, that their states and counties and cities, as long as they're working together, they'll be able to push whatever they need to for their specific state.
And I know going back to like the research like Justice did, like how we really don't have long-term studies for the impact. So that's also like kind of an uphill battle. Like we know, like we can tell that it's not a pretty thing. It's been causing issues. But I think it's just that lack of definitive studies that can also impose like a difficulty going after it.
And just to go off of that, there is a study going on right now with Yale. They're working under the EPA Superfund, and those results will come out in 2027. So we still have 4 years to wait and see what they come up with, but they are researching to see the effects on humans, not animals, which is what we have as of now. So I think once that research comes out and it will show that it has similar effects that it has being inhaled, I think that will change the way litigation happens moving forward.
Seems like an awful long time ago. The 1960s, things I've read since then, well, we paid. We did our part, land done that. I don't think they ever will.
To use another example, if you look at like Roundup and Monsanto, and the billions of dollars that they've been paying out. The sad thing is, there has to be an injury before there can be that type of action brought. But what that does not mean is that you can't raise awareness. There are, I think it's 11 states and I don't know how many counties where Roundup and glyphosate is illegal. So you can take a grassroots type of an action. You can start in your community. You can work with your local governments and your commissioners to be a proponent for change. That's part of the way we're looking at some of the green initiatives, for clean water and things. Almost so difficult to get a constitutional amendment passed for the United States. But, we can start with the state. We can start with the local governments. And it's community organizations like you that can raise that awareness and get people on board, work with your commissioners, work with the representatives, and put your vote to work where it counts. And we can get some of these things. Like we have a statute for this particular flood landscaping. There's no reason why we couldn't push to get a statute somewhere to make that illegal in the state of Florida. I mean, it would take a while because it's a long time away for the study, right? I get frustrated on that too. And when I have glyphosate being sprayed in my backyard because I live next to a body of water and say, that's illegal. Oh boy. All right, let's talk. So we're raising awareness. I got neighbors on the path now to try and dig into that. So you have a voice, let's use it.
Well, and I guess I kind of want to make a comment too, because as we move forward and we lobby against like these different types of chemicals and things that are predominantly because of our manufacturing industry. And we hold manufacturing high in the United States because of the jobs. So what we do know with the AI and technology, these manufacturing jobs are going to go away. So I think one thing about public outreach that needs to be really prominent is how do green jobs replace these manufacturing jobs? So that way we are looking into it. We're going to have a newer future. We're going to have a better future. We don't have enough resources to continuously keep manufacturing new resources. So I think also coupling that with how we get there will help the state and help. Well, it might be scary at first, but regardless, it's coming.
For the 1,4-dioxane being in our care products and things, is there anything legally, a class action suit or something that could be done against those companies? And how did they get the right to put that in our products to begin with? That's beyond your scope, but.
Yeah.
Research, originally, the majority of the stuff that was put in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, they did not know that there was going to be some sort of negative effect. And we see that with all the things that are being recalled throughout the years, if you have, stuff in your walls, everything like that, asbestos, things of that nature, they did not know the effects of what it was at that point. The issue now is how do we research that effects? How do we disseminate that information, not only to the people who are affected, but to others who are around? Because there's a very big difference between those who are truly affected by an issue and what they want to do between now and then and somebody else who's seeing somebody else. You're going to react it. But if we all come together in some sort of way, obviously it's easier said than done. And that's something that I think we've all harped on, was the communication aspect of, if Florida unites in the way that it can to fight these issues, each one of these issues, they can definitely handle it and tailor it to fit their specific needs and state.
Sustainability takes many forms, and it can start at home with our house, with our yards, with the products that we choose. And we can put out the words, and social media is such a powerful tool right now. Do you want this on your body? Do you want this in your home and around your children and in your drinking water? Well, make a choice. We can make those choices, the money makes the choices. And we know that. So choose where you spend your money on something sustainable. It wasn't known. And many of the things that we take for granted, we didn't even realize. So we're learning. That's what this is all about, education and helping us.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And there's probably some chemicals that we use every day now that we don't even know it's going to cause some major issues down the road. I was like, but yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. I don't know what's in a Slim Jim, but it's not good.
Yeah.
So, but going to the HOA again, so with the Florida friendly landscape, one of the comments you have made to solutions is if the HOA provide you list. Well, let's say you get the list and there's 10 plants on there, but you want to plant another plant that's not on that list. Do they have the availability to say, well, it doesn't matter that it's on, even though that's Florida friendly and this is 10 plants that I have, well, I want to plant porterweed and that's not on the list. And then my other question is, does the location matter? Can I plant forever if I have Florida?
Yeah, it does, and there's two parts to that, right? So if the HOA is being sustainably minded and is creating a list to have a more uniform looking community, and it is sustainable Florida friendly landscaping, and you choose to live in that community, I think they will have a stronger argument than you choosing to go outside of those limits. So say, hey, you don't have to live in this community. That's just a first reaction, but that doesn't mean you can work with the HOA to add it for whatever benefit, the beauty of it, or what have you. But when you choose to live in that community with those constraints like we do now, we thought we were bound, but we have an open road. Also, don't spread that around too loud, because then we'll all get on the bandwagon and they'll all start restricting you again. So just, use it to your advantage first, and then let them figure out that they can restrict you. Now, the second part of your question is that if you go to the IFAS website, it does help you determine between which environmental zones of the state of Florida, which things grow better. So if an HOA, say, for example, puts some coastal zone things in the middle of the forested zones of Florida, it probably wouldn't work as well, or some vice versa, right? Because we all know if any of us lived on the coast, certain things won't grow there. that we can't. So it will go by as kind of an ecological zone, so you can check into that on the site.
Oh, and I actually meant in your yard.
Oh.
So like the location, the proximity, can I plant in the front of my yard? Can I plant also by the sidewalk? Can I put plants all over the place if they're Florida friendly, or do I have to still follow the guidelines of like where I can plant?
There might be some restrictions coming from my HOA where heights and things, like there's certain things like you have to be able to see the lake from a certain view and visibility from the street for, public service vehicles or what have you. So there may be some restrictions on that.
Yeah, I think, from like limited, like I didn't really look too far into like that issue. But from limited research, I believe it's like, they can't restrict you from implementing Florida-friendly landscape in like lieu of something they wanted you to have. So, like, say they want you to have this bush, but you wanted a Florida-friendly bush, and you could put that Florida-friendly bush there. But I think they can still control the height, location, stuff like that. I think it's just the type of plant is the scope of that statute.
And sometimes on the beneficial side of they're protecting, lines and water and sewers and things like that. So like for myself, I plant trees all over my yard. I don't want to get another gas line, right? The roots going through, or I don't want to ruin the water line. So there can be really beneficial components to work with them, but you have more power to things.
There are no standard boilerplate covenants for homeowners in Florida, right? Each homeowner association can draw up their own documents.
Yeah, essentially. I mean,
and own rules.
but I know you have some expertise.
Yeah, my joy is coming up on a 25-year cycle on, we have to go through that process. The process is this, to modify your covenants, it takes 2/3 vote of the membership to do it. And that is not easy, because a lot of HOAs, they're hard to make it formal. So the other thing we're doing right now is go ahead and get our covenant, what the acronym is just get them renewed at this point. We're at the 25-year cycle because we're a mandatory HOA. I left behind Discovery Middle, like down the road. Okay. Anyway, that's not the story. I'm not attached to either master. Work links master. One configuration in Eastwood's another.
This may be out of the scope of your research, but I understand that there's a significant proposal among the Republican-controlled state legislators to change HOA covenants in Florida. Are any of the things that you worked on proposed?
Actually, I did not come across that in my research.
Again, that goes back to Florida statute 720, I think it's 340, because the HOA is a corporation.
That's what they're changing.
I mean.
That's what they're gonna modify are those statutes. Right.
Statutes on.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
There are a few things in with the legislature, you can always watch it because it does shift, right? So it's leaning sometimes a little bit on the right of the HOA, and then it can be on the right of the homeowner, and they can be disguised under different types of language. So don't go by the title, read what is proposed and get on there and comment. The power of the comment is stronger than you might realize. Go onto the register, look at what is being proposed and put your comments on there, band together as an organization, get the word out and have your feelings and your thoughts and your input put into the comment before it goes up.
But the reality is that nullification in the state of Florida says you have to lobby the legislature because your local government can be overruled by the legislature, as I understand it, right?
Supremacy.
Yeah, okay.
Quick question. Let's say I live in an HOA and then I have like 2/3 quorum and I'm president. Can I dissolve the HOA? And then when I dissolve it, can it just go into the city as a responsibility of a neighborhood, just like other neighborhoods are?
I don't have an authority to speak on that, but when some communities, something like how mandated, and when they're zoned, there are certain things put in place. Now, I do know, and I just learned this, that the CDDs that go along with the HOAs those are really only designed to be until the community reaches maturity in what I think it's 20 years.
Right.
And so then those can be dissolved because a lot of you know with that too. So, look into that, you know, it's a question, go to the meetings, get involved, you know, find out, but you may, HOAs may be here to stay unless there's something that can change the tide, which will take a lot more than just a social media. I think it'll take a huge effort.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so water infrastructure in Seminole County is, I want to know if Seminole is able to take advantage of the infrastructure bill. By administration infrastructure.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that. Yeah. So we didn't find.
I don't know.
Oh, I would be asking.
No, the intercessor bill is to the state government. It allocates money to states. And then the state, because the state is preemptive over all the local governments in charge, anything below state governmental level is non-existent as far as the Constitution priority of laws, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's like going back to like the whole, how under the Florida Constitution, the counties are really only allowed to impose like ad valorem taxes, like property taxes.
Right.
And those are the only taxes, and I think they can impose like special sales taxes. But overall, like they can't just implement a tax to just tax certain people to fund the project. That would have to be done by general law, which is just a law that affects everyone. So everyone would have, like every county would have to tax under that law. So I think, yeah, essentially, I mean, we'd have to look into that.
It would be an interesting project to look at types of constitutional rights and the laws granted therein, because it's not only property laws, right, and a right to quiet enjoyment and all those types of things, but you know, the infrastructure bill on the federal level and how that relates down on a state level, that would be an interesting project to look into as well.
So Seminole County is doing, like most counties, a 20-year plan, and so they have it in 5-year implements of how they do it, and then they have a 10-year plan that they're supposed to put out there to get them through. So they have funding, but it's just for their utility. It's not for all the other infrastructure of the municipalities that have it. And there's a lot of private utilities. So Seminole Utility only provides service for like 75,000 people in Seminole County. So there's a lot of people who have other. And so I know that Seminole County got money to implement in the priority protection areas, the advancement of septic tanks to more advanced treatment. So that isn't a county utility thing. That is a county practice they're doing to get people off septic.
Weatherization assistance. How about an owner of a multifamily unit? Could that owner apply to that program?
They would need prior approval from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity if the subrecipient wants to weatherize that.
Is there any online questions?
I mean, they were outside of for research, so I.
Thank you, Professor.
And yeah, any final questions for the students?
Great job.
Well, thank you so much. We still really cherish this relationship that we have with the League of Women Voters. I know the students get a lot out of it, and I hope you do as well. And we look forward to continuing. I think even just tonight, we got some great ideas for future projects. I wrote quite a few questions down. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really think it's important to showcase all of the hard work they've done, and I think it really shows how much they put into these issues and how important they are for Florida in general. So the fact that we can work together on this. I think it's
We have a
great.
link available.
We will, yes, absolutely, yes,
And then-
I started it pretty early, so I'm gonna edit down that beginning so that we don't have 20 minutes of dead air.
Presentation.
Exactly, we will send you the
Yeah.
presentations, we'll send you the links, and that should be it. So,
Thank you so
again,
much.
thank you. Before Chairman Kay goes, if you mind taking a picture with the group, and actually that because you're one of our clients. Sorry. She's about to interview for you.
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I understand.
I think you're right.
No idea.
Hi, you saw it's great.
Yeah.
It's actually being.
No,
Okay.
the same kind of.
I know about.
In this past year, you know, how we do it, how somebody from. Okay.
Do I hand them to you?
Yes, please. I'm down.
Yeah, I just report myself. It's hard, I mean. So-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's go down. I'm like 20 minutes.
Okay, let's do it.
That would be my I got
Turning out.
Yeah.
Let's go make sure you, Mr. Lee, am I okay to go? Okay. Great job. Sure.
So Val, you do have all.
Yes, okay, to get the rest of them. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Oh, thank you. Hey, I'll take what I get.
Oh,
No. Oh.
That's it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.